They thought the fat guy on third shift was too stupid to notice. My son Travis smiled, slid papers across the kitchen table, said, "Dad, just sign here, I'll handle the property transfer. Make everything easier for you." His key to my safe sat on his belt loop like a trophy. Every night, I watched him through the security feed I'd installed, opening my safe, photographing documents, texting his girlfriend about the old man's rental portfolio. He called me incompetent to my lawyer. To my face, he called me Dad. The third shift at Kellerman Manufacturing starts at 11 o'clock at night. I've walked through those doors for 18 years, punching the same time clock that's been jamming since 2012, the one that leaves a smudge of ink on your knuckle if you don't pull the card out fast enough. Muscle memory now. The night air in Toledo smells different depending on the season. January carries the metallic bite of frozen Lake Erie mixing with machine oil from the foundries along the river. It sticks in your throat if you breathe too deep. I stopped breathing deep a long time ago. The factory floor runs 3 production lines. My job is to keep them running. Hydraulic pressure gauges, temperature logs, equipment diagnostics, union safety protocols. 18 years of the same circuit. Bay 1 through Bay 7, then the break room, then back. My clipboard is the same one I started with, the metal clip bent slightly to the left from where I dropped it off a catwalk in 2009. The paper corners are soft from sweat and handling. It fits my hand like a worn tool. Most of the younger guys on shift don't talk to me much. I'm the fat supervisor who moves slow and doesn't say much. They see the belly hanging over my belt, the coffee thermos I refill 3 times a night, the way I have to sit down when I'm filling out incident reports because my knees ache after walking the concrete floors for 8 hours. They see what they expect to see. Tuesday night, 2:47 in the morning, I was in Bay 7 checking the coolant temperature on the CNC lathe when my phone buzzed. Text message. From Travis. The screen glowed blue in the dim factory light, and I could feel the weight of it before I even read the words. "Dad, need you to sign some papers tomorrow. Simplifying the rental management, I'll handle everything going forward." Attached was a PDF. I opened it standing there under the fluorescent fixture that's been flickering for 3 weeks because maintenance hasn't gotten to it yet. Quitclaim deed. 1157 Oakmont Street. The property I bought in 2019 for $187,000. The one now worth $340,000. The document used language that sounded temporary, administrative. Management transfer for administrative efficiency. But the legal effect was permanent. Complete ownership transfer. My name off the deed. His name on it. Sole ownership. I've spent 2 decades negotiating union contracts at Kellerman. Read every word of every collective bargaining agreement since 2006. I know what theft looks like when someone dresses it up in professional language. My hands didn't shake. I screenshotted the document. Saved it to a folder I'd created 6 months ago labeled Property Records. Then I continued my rounds. Checked the hydraulic pressure in Bay 5. Logged the bearing temperature in Bay 3. Initialed the safety checklist in the break room. The protocol doesn't change because someone tries to rob you. You document. You analyze. You correct. I didn't text Travis back that night. Drove home in my Ford F-150 at 7:30 in the morning, the same truck I bought used in 2015 with 112,000 miles already on it. The steering wheel has a worn spot on the left side where my thumb rests during the 23-minute drive from the factory to my house on Birch Street. The house I bought in 1998 when Travis was 4 years old. When his mother was still alive. When I still believed family meant something you could trust. The kitchen light was on when I pulled into the driveway. Travis's Nissan Altima was parked in front, the one with the dent in the passenger door he's never fixed and the inspection sticker that expired 4 months ago. I could see him through the window. Sitting at my kitchen table. The table his mother and I bought at an estate sale in 2003, solid oak with cigarette burns on one corner from the previous owner. Travis had papers spread across it. 5 or 6 documents. A pen. His phone. That smile he's been using since he was 12 and figured out it got him things he wanted. I came through the side door. Set my lunchbox on the counter, the black canvas one with the broken zipper I've been using for 11 years. He looked up. Morning, Dad. You look exhausted. Those night shifts are killing you. Maybe it's time to let me handle more of the family business. His voice had that smooth quality. The one he uses when he wants something. The papers on the table were fanned out like a sales presentation. I could see the headers. Quitclaim deeds. Multiple properties. Durable power of attorney. Healthcare proxy. A complete asset seizure package laid out on the table where his mother and I used to eat Sunday breakfast. My chest felt tight. Not panic. Just the slow recognition of a system failure you've been expecting but hoped wouldn't happen. I rubbed my eyes. Let my shoulders sag. Played the role he expected. Travis, I'm too tired to think about this now. Maybe later. He leaned forward. His cologne was too strong. Something synthetic and cloying that probably cost $60 at the mall. It mixed with the coffee smell in the kitchen and made my stomach turn. Dad, you don't understand how complicated property management has become. Tax filings, tenant disputes, maintenance coordination. It's overwhelming for someone working your schedule. His tone was patient. The way you talk to a child who doesn't understand why bedtime exists. I've already talked to an attorney. This protects you. Protects me. I looked at my son. 32 years old. Never held a job longer than 18 months. $43,000 in credit card debt I discovered last year when he asked me to co-sign a car loan and I pulled his credit report instead. His girlfriend Amber works at a nail salon and drives a leased BMW she can't afford. They eat at restaurants 4 nights a week and post about it on social media. And now he was sitting in my kitchen telling me he needed to protect me. Let me think about it, I said quietly. Walked toward my bedroom. My knees ached. The kind of deep ache that settles into the joint after 8 hours on concrete. Behind me I heard him pick up his phone. His voice carried clearly. He wasn't even trying to be quiet. Yeah, he's confused. I'll have everything signed by Friday. Oldman doesn't understand what he's agreeing to anymore. I closed my bedroom door. The handle was loose. Had been for 2 years. I kept meaning to tighten it. From my nightstand I pulled out the tablet I'd hidden under a stack of union contract binders. The tablet connected to 8 cameras I'd installed 6 months ago. Nest brand. $1,247 total from Best Buy. Installed them myself over a weekend when Travis said he was busy. Positioned to cover every room in the house. Every angle. I scrolled back through archived footage. November 18th. 2:34 in the afternoon. Travis entering my study with a key I'd never given him. Opening my safe. The combination I'd never shared but he'd obviously watched me enter. Inside the safe he photographed rental agreements. Mortgage documents. Insurance policies. Property deeds. 23 minutes of him systematically photographing everything I owned. December 3rd. Same thing. January 8th. Same thing. He'd been building his case for months. Documenting my assets. Preparing his theft. And I'd watched every second of it happen. Recorded it all. Waited to see how far he'd go. Now I knew. I sat on the edge of my bed. The same mattress I bought when Travis graduated high school. Sealy brand. The salesman said it would last 15 years. That was 14 years ago. The springs on the left side have started to sag where I sleep, creating a depression my body falls into automatically now. The bedroom was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator 2 rooms away, a sound so constant I only notice it when I'm trying to think. The tablet sat on my lap, still showing footage of my son rifling through my safe like he was shopping. Outside, his Nissan was still in the driveway. He was still in my kitchen. Still spreading his paperwork across my table. Still planning. I opened the locked filing cabinet beside my bed. The key stays on a ring with my work keys, buried among 8 other identical-looking keys that open nothing. The cabinet is older than Travis. Olive green metal. 4 drawers. Bought it at a military surplus auction in 1996 for $30. The bottom drawer doesn't slide smoothly anymore. You have to lift it slightly as you pull. Inside were the real documents. The ones Travis didn't know existed because he'd never bothered to look beyond the obvious. Every property deed I own has a clause I personally insisted on during closing. Clause 14B. Drafted by my union attorney Marcus Webb back in 2007 when I bought my second rental property. The language is specific. Any transfer of title requires notarized co-signature by a verified union representative of Local 447, witnessed in person. Any attempted transfer without such verification renders the deed void and constitutes prima facie evidence of fraud under Ohio Revised Code Section 2913.02. Marcus had fought me on this clause. Said it was paranoid. Calvin, who would forge property transfers. You're making closings complicated for no reason. But I'd been negotiating union contracts for 16 years at that point. I'd seen people steal pension benefits by forging signatures on retirement paperwork. Falsify overtime records to pocket payments meant for workers who didn't exist. Forge safety inspection documents to avoid shutdown costs. I knew exactly what people would do when they thought no one understood the paperwork. When they thought the fat guy was too tired or too stupid to notice. My union contract binder sat on the shelf above the filing cabinet. 4 inches thick. Red cover faded to pink on the spine from sunlight and handling. Every clause I'd personally negotiated or litigated over 2 decades. Section 47, Fraud Protection Protocols. Section 89, Member Asset Security. Section 103, Legal Defense Fund Procedures. I'd built these protections specifically for situations where someone tried to exploit perceived weakness. Where management assumed workers didn't understand legal language. Where someone mistook silence for stupidity. My phone showed 17 text messages from Travis now. The screen lit up every few minutes with a new one. Dad, just sign the papers. This is for your own good. Do you want me to come back tonight? Why aren't you answering? Each message was evidence. Each one showed impatience. People who are impatient make mistakes. They push too hard. They commit acts that can't be taken back. They create proof. The tightness in my chest hadn't gone away. It sat there like a weight pressing down on my sternum. Not fear. Something colder. The feeling you get when machinery fails and you realize you have to tear the whole system down to fix it properly. You can't just patch it. You have to rebuild. I'd been asking myself the same question since I saw that first quitclaim deed on my phone. Why had I tolerated Travis's disrespect this long? Why had I let him keep a key to my house? Why hadn't I changed my safe combination after the first time I caught him on camera? The answer made my throat feel tight. After his mother died in 2021, I'd wanted to believe family still meant something. I'd wanted to be the generous father. The one who gave second chances. The one who trusted his son to eventually grow into someone worth trusting. Classic virtue trap. Mistaking patience for rehabilitation. Interpreting his continued presence as progress when really he was just gathering intelligence. Learning my patterns. Mapping my assets. Planning. His mother would have seen through him faster than I did. Sarah had a way of reading people that I never developed. She would have noticed the questions Travis asked about rental income. The way he showed up at the house when I wasn't home. The casual interest he took in my filing system. She would have locked it down years ago. But Sarah died of pneumonia 3 days after Christmas 2021. And I'd spent the years since trying to fill the hole she left by being softer than I should have been. By giving Travis access he didn't earn. By hoping love could fix whatever was broken in him. It couldn't. And now the failure was complete. The system had collapsed. Not because I didn't see it coming. Because I'd chosen to believe it wouldn't. That ended now. Not because I was angry. Anger was inefficient. This was a mechanical problem requiring a mechanical solution. A malfunction that needed correction. I picked up my phone. Dialed Marcus Webb's number. He answered on the third ring, his voice rough with sleep. Calvin. It's 7:45 in the morning. What's wrong? Marcus, I need you to do 3 things. First, file a formal notice with Lucas County Recorder's Office that any property deed transfers bearing my name require your personal witness and signature. Effective immediately. Silence on the other end. Then, Calvin, what happened? Second, I need access to the union's fraud investigation resources. Legal support. Documentation protocols. Whatever we have for members whose assets are being stolen. Jesus. Is this about Travis? Marcus's voice sharpened. He was awake now. Fully alert. Third, I need you at the recorder's office Friday morning at 9 o'clock. I need police fraud division there too. Someone's going to attempt to file forged documents, and I want him caught in the act. More silence. Longer this time. Marcus had been my union attorney for 19 years. He'd negotiated contracts with me. Filed grievances. Fought management on safety violations and wage theft. He knew how I worked. Methodical. Precise. I didn't make accusations without evidence. You have proof, he asked. 6 months of video footage. Recorded phone conversations. Text messages. Forged signature samples. Medical fraud conspiracy. The complete package. My voice stayed flat. Procedural. He's been planning this since last summer. I've been documenting every step. Now I'm ending it. I'll make the calls, Marcus said. Calvin, I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. It's not about easy. It's about correcting a malfunction. I ended the call. Set the phone on the nightstand next to the tablet. Outside my bedroom I could hear Travis moving around the kitchen. Opening cabinets. Running water. Making himself comfortable in my house while he planned to steal it. The weight in my chest shifted. Settled deeper. Became something solid and cold and permanent. For 18 years I'd walked the factory floor at Kellerman Manufacturing. Supervised workers who saw my uniform and clipboard and made assumptions about my intelligence. Let them talk over me in meetings. Let them explain simple concepts like I was slow. And the whole time I was reading their contracts. Finding the loopholes they didn't know existed. Building protections they didn't understand. Negotiating clauses that would save their pensions and their safety and their wages from people who thought workers were too stupid to fight back. Travis had made the same mistake they all made. He'd seen the mask and thought it was the man. He'd seen patience and interpreted it as weakness. He'd seen silence and assumed it meant surrender. Friday morning at 9 o'clock, he was going to learn the difference. And by the time he figured it out, it would be too late to do anything but watch everything he'd planned collapse around him. I opened my closet. Pulled out the lockbox from the top shelf, the one with my passport and birth certificate and the spare cash I keep for emergencies. $5,000 in 50s and 20s. Attorney retainer money if I needed it. Bail money if things went wrong. Insurance. I counted it twice. Put it back. Then I lay down on my bed fully clothed and closed my eyes. Not to sleep. Just to let my body rest while my mind worked through every step of what was coming. Travis thought he was hunting an old man who didn't understand paperwork. He had no idea he'd walked into a trap I'd been building since the day I installed those cameras. Since the day I added Clause 14b to my property deeds. Since the day I started recording every conversation we had. The trap was set. The evidence was gathered. The authorities were being positioned. All that remained was letting him take the final step. Letting him commit the act that would destroy him. And then watching the system I'd built do exactly what it was designed to do, protect the patient man from the predator who mistook kindness for weakness. Thursday evening I came home at my usual time carrying a Subway sandwich, turkey on wheat, the same thing I ordered every Thursday for the past 3 years because the woman behind the counter knew my order and I didn't have to think about it anymore. The bag was warm against my palm. Grease had started to soak through the paper in one corner. I could smell the vinegar from the pickles through the wrapper. Travis's Nissan was in my driveway again, and next to it was a silver BMW with a lease company frame around the license plate. Amber's car. The kitchen light was on. I could see them both through the window before I even reached the door. Travis was sitting at the head of the table, my spot, the place I'd sat for 28 years. Amber was next to him scrolling through her phone, her nails catching the light, some kind of sparkly polish that probably cost $40 at the salon where she worked. I came through the side door slowly, letting it creak the way it always did, letting my footsteps sound heavy and tired on the linoleum. Set the sandwich bag on the counter next to the microwave that still had a grease stain on the door from 2 weeks ago when I'd reheated pizza and it had splattered. My phone was in my shirt pocket, recording app already running, positioned so the microphone faced outward. I'd tested the audio quality that morning. Crystal clear. "Dad, we need to talk." Travis stood up, using his full height, the way he always did when he wanted to intimidate someone into agreeing with him. He'd been tall since high school, 6'2", lean in a way that made people think he was athletic even though he'd never played sports or done physical work. His shirt was expensive, some brand name with a logo on the chest. It fit him perfectly because he spent money on tailoring instead of savings. "I'm worried about you. The night shift is destroying your health. You're forgetting things, getting confused about paperwork. Amber and I think you need help." Amber looked up from her phone and nodded, her expression arranged into something she probably thought looked concerned. Her perfume was thick and sweet, the kind that announced her presence before she entered a room. It mixed with the smell of my sandwich and made the air feel cloying and artificial. I moved to the table slowly, pulled out a chair, let myself sink into it like the weight of the day was too much. Rubbed my face with both hands. "I'm just tired, son." My voice came out flat, defeated, exactly the way I needed it to sound. "Exactly. Which is why you should sign these documents tomorrow. Let me handle everything. You've worked hard enough." He pushed papers across the table toward me. 5 quitclaim deeds. 2 durable power of attorney forms. 1 healthcare proxy. All of them with sticky tabs marking where my signature should go. "The attorney will be here at 10 o'clock in the morning. Just sign where I've marked, and you can finally rest." "What attorney?" I let confusion creep into my voice, let my eyes move across the papers like I couldn't quite follow what they meant. Travis exchanged a look with Amber. The kind of look that communicated volumes. "See? He's lost it. Told you. This is easier than we thought. Don't worry about details, Dad. I'm handling everything." His voice had that patient quality again, the one that made my jaw clench even though I kept my face slack. "Just trust me." I picked up the first deed with both hands, let them shake slightly. Not from fear. From the effort of controlling the rage that sat in my chest like a furnace. The paper was crisp, freshly printed, probably from an online legal document service. The address was 1157 Oakmont Street. My first rental property. Below it was 1422 Maple Avenue. Then 903 Sycamore Drive. Every property I owned, all lined up for transfer. Friday at 10 o'clock. I repeated it like I was trying to hold onto the information but couldn't quite manage it. "Perfect. I'll make coffee. Everything will be fine." Travis smiled, and it was the same smile he'd used when he was 16 and convinced me to co-sign for his first car, the one he'd totaled 8 months later and stuck me with the loan for. That smile had cost me $4,000. This one was trying to cost me $2.1 million. I set the papers down carefully, stood up slowly, shuffled toward my bedroom like an old man who'd given up fighting. Behind me I heard Travis's voice drop to a whisper but not low enough. "Told you. Old man has no idea what he's signing anymore." Amber's voice, breathy and excited. "How much will the property sell for?" "At least $2 million. Consolidated Construction already said they'd pay cash for the portfolio. Fast closing, no inspection. We split the commission with the realtor, pay off my cards, your car lease, then we're clear. Maybe buy a condo in Florida." "What about him?" Her voice carried an edge of something that might have been guilt or might have been concern about getting caught. "Some assisted living place. Medicaid will cover it once we spend down his assets. He won't know the difference anyway. Probably better for him, honestly. He can't take care of himself much longer." I stood in the hallway just out of sight, my phone recording every word. The audio was clean, no background noise, their voices clear and distinct. Evidence. Confession. Proof of intent. I closed my bedroom door loud enough for them to hear. Sat on my bed and played back the recording. Their voices came through perfectly. Travis describing the sale price. Amber asking about my future. Travis explaining the assisted living plan, the asset spend-down strategy, the timeline. Every word would play beautifully in court. I saved the file. Backed it up to cloud storage. Emailed a copy to Marcus Webb with the subject line, Evidence Package, Part 3. Then I pulled out the tablet and scrolled through the camera feeds. Travis and Amber were still in the kitchen, celebrating with beers they'd taken from my refrigerator without asking. Travis was on his phone now, typing rapidly. I switched to the camera in my study, rewound to 3 hours earlier, when I'd been at work. There. Travis entering with his key. Opening my safe again, the one he thought he had access to because he'd memorized the combination 6 months ago. The combination I'd changed 4 months ago. The safe he was opening now contained nothing but blank paper and a note I'd left that morning, looking for something. He'd stood there staring at that note for 47 seconds according to the timestamp. Then he'd torn through my filing cabinets, searching for the real documents, the ones I'd moved to a safe deposit box at First Federal in November. He'd found nothing. And then he'd left, his face twisted with frustration, the camera caught in perfect high definition. He didn't know the safe combination had changed. Didn't know the documents were gone. Didn't know every action he took was being recorded and archived. He thought he was hunting. He had no idea he was already caught. I opened my laptop, the old Dell I'd bought in 2017 when my previous one died, the one with a cracked bezel around the screen and a missing rubber foot that made it sit uneven on the desk. Logged into the Lucas County Recorder's Office website. Property records were public information. I pulled up the deed for 1157 Oakmont Street, the property Travis was planning to steal first. Status, active. Owner, Calvin James Ortiz. Restrictions, see Clause 14b, union co-signature required for transfer. The restriction was right there in the public record. Anyone who looked could see it. But Travis hadn't looked. He'd assumed I was too stupid to protect myself. Assumed the fat supervisor who worked nights didn't understand property law. Assumed silence meant ignorance. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, Marcus Webb would file an official notice with the recorder's office flagging all 7 of my properties. Any attempted transfer without his personal witness and notarized co-signature would trigger an automatic fraud alert and police notification. The system would be armed and waiting. And at 10 o'clock, when Travis showed up with his attorney and his forged documents, I'd let him think everything was going according to plan. I'd sign papers with a shaking hand. I'd ask confused questions. I'd play the role so perfectly he'd never suspect the trap until it snapped shut around him. Then, when he walked into the recorder's office to file those fraudulent deeds, when he believed he'd finally stolen everything I'd built, the police would be waiting. Detective Mendez from the Fraud Division. Marcus Webb with the union legal team. Every camera in that office recording. Every witness documenting. And Travis would realize, too late, that the quiet man he'd been stealing from had spent 6 months building a cage around him, and he'd walked into it voluntarily, smiling the whole way. Friday morning arrived with the kind of pale winter light that makes everything look washed out and clinical. I woke at 6:30 after 3 hours of sleep that felt more like waiting than resting. My body ached in the familiar places, lower back, knees, the space between my shoulder blades that never quite released no matter how I positioned myself. The house was quiet. Travis had left sometime after midnight, his Nissan finally pulling out of my driveway at 12:47 according to the camera timestamp I'd checked before lying down. I showered in water that took too long to get hot, the pipes knocking in the walls the way they'd been knocking since 2008 when I'd replaced the water heater myself to save money. Dressed in my work clothes even though I wasn't going to the factory today. Dark blue Dickies work pants, gray button-down shirt, steel-toed boots that were scuffed and worn at the toes. The uniform of a man who worked with his hands and didn't think about appearance. The costume Travis expected to see. At 7:45 I drove to the Lucas County Recorder's office downtown. The building was old brick and limestone, built in 1932 according to the cornerstone, with marble floors inside that echoed when you walked and fluorescent lights that hummed with a frequency you could feel in your teeth if you paid attention. Marcus Webb was waiting in the lobby, standing near the public records terminal with a leather briefcase that looked expensive and well-maintained. He saw me and nodded, his face professionally neutral, but I caught the tightness around his eyes. Calvin. Everything's in place. Detective Mendez is in the back office with 2 plainclothes officers. The clerk at counter 7 is briefed. Soon as he tries to file those deeds, she'll initiate the verification protocol, and that's when we move. He'll be here at 9:30, I said, checking my watch, an old Timex with a cracked crystal I'd been wearing for 16 years. Thinks he's beating the rush. Getting the filings done before I even wake up to realize what happened. Marcus pulled a document from his briefcase, official Lucas County letterhead, embossed seal at the bottom. This is the property restriction notice. Filed it electronically at 7 o'clock this morning. All 7 properties now require my personal witness for any title transfer. It's in the system. Permanent record. I took the paper, felt the weight of it, heavier than regular printer paper, some kind of official county stock. The text was dense, legal language that said in 15 different ways that Calvin James Ortiz's properties could not be transferred without union representation present and verifying. My hands were steady holding it. No tremor. No uncertainty. Just the cold clarity of a mechanism clicking into its final position. Where do you need me? I asked. Nowhere. You go home. Let him think everything's proceeding normally. Let him file the paperwork and commit the act. We need him to complete the fraud attempt, otherwise it's just intent, and intent is harder to prosecute. He needs to walk up to that counter and submit forged documents as if they're real. That's when it becomes a felony we can't plea down. I nodded. Turned toward the exit. Marcus caught my arm, his grip firm but not aggressive. Calvin, you sure about this? Once it starts, there's no walking it back. He's your son. He stopped being my son when he decided I was too stupid to notice he was robbing me. The words came out flat, factual, without heat or emotion. Just a statement of mechanical reality. Now he's a malfunction that needs correcting. I drove home and waited. Sat in my kitchen drinking coffee that had gone cold in the pot, staring at the papers still spread across my table where Travis had left them the night before. The quitclaim deeds. The power of attorney forms. The healthcare proxy. All of them marked with sticky tabs showing where I was supposed to sign. Where the confused old man was supposed to surrender everything he'd built because his son said it was for his own good. At 9:53 my phone rang. Travis. I let it ring 4 times before answering, long enough to seem like I'd been sleeping, disoriented, slow. Dad, where are you? The attorney's here. We're waiting. His voice carried an edge of irritation barely masked by false concern. Sorry, son. I was sleeping. Night shift, you know. I'm confused about what's happening today. I let my words slur slightly, like I'd just woken up, like my mind wasn't tracking properly. The papers, Dad. Remember? You were going to sign the property transfers. We talked about this. Oh. Right. The papers. I paused, let the silence stretch. Should I come home? No. Don't worry about it. I'll bring them to you. Where are you? He was too eager now, the irritation breaking through. He'd planned this carefully, scheduled the attorney, prepared the documents, and now the confused old man was ruining the timeline by not being where he was supposed to be. I'm at the house. I think. Or maybe I drove somewhere. I don't remember. The lie came easily, the performance honed by 6 months of practice, letting him think I was exactly what he needed me to be. Jesus Christ. Stay there. I'm coming now. He ended the call. I could picture him in his Nissan, speeding toward my house, his attorney probably following in a separate car, both of them rushing to catch the old man before he wandered off or forgot what he was supposed to do. But I wasn't at the house. I was parked 3 blocks away on Chestnut Street, watching my phone, tracking the camera feeds that showed Travis's Nissan pulling into my driveway at 9:58, followed by a black Lexus with attorney plates. Watched them knock on my door. Watched Travis use his key to enter. Watched him search the house, calling my name, his voice getting louder and angrier with each empty room. And then I watched him make the decision. Watched him pull out the papers, spread them on my kitchen counter, and forge my signature on every single document. 5 quitclaim deeds. 2 power of attorney forms. 1 healthcare proxy. His hand moved quickly, confidently, practicing the signature he'd obviously studied. The camera captured every stroke, every page, timestamp running in the corner. 10:07 in the morning, January 10, 2026. Felony forgery, recorded in 4K resolution. He gathered the papers, said something to the attorney I couldn't hear through the camera audio, and they left together, both cars heading downtown toward the recorder's office. I waited 3 minutes. Then I followed. The recorder's office parking lot was half full when I arrived at 10:28. I parked in the back row, far from the entrance, where my truck would blend with the other work vehicles. Walked slowly across the lot, my boots scraping on the concrete, each step measured and deliberate. Inside, the marble floors echoed with the sound of people moving through bureaucratic rituals. Filing paperwork, requesting records, notarizing documents. The ordinary machinery of property ownership and legal transfer. I sat on a plastic chair near the drinking fountain, the same kind of orange-molded plastic they'd been using in government buildings since the 1970s, uncomfortable and utilitarian. Pulled my phone out like I was checking messages. From this position I could see counter 7 clearly. Could see Travis standing there with his attorney, a thin man in an expensive suit who carried himself like someone who charged $400 an hour and thought it made him smarter than everyone else. Travis was talking to the clerk, Jennifer Martinez, a woman I'd met twice before when filing property documents, someone who knew procedure and followed it exactly. She was scanning the first deed, her face neutral and professional, then typing into her computer. Reading something on screen. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her posture shift, a subtle straightening that meant she'd found what she was looking for. The flag Marcus had filed that morning. The restriction. The trap. "Sir, these properties have special filing requirements," Jennifer said, her voice carrying clearly across the quiet office. "I need to verify union co-signature per Clause 14b. Do you have authorization from Local 447? Travis blinked. Confusion crossed his face, then irritation. "What? No. My father signed these. He owns the properties outright. There's no union involved. The deed restrictions specify that any transfer requires union representative witness and notarized co-signature. Without that, I can't process these filings." Her tone was professionally apologetic but firm. Procedure was procedure. "That's insane." Travis's voice rose, anger bleeding through his careful performance. He never mentioned any union requirement. "Look, my father has dementia. He doesn't understand these details anymore. That's why I'm handling his affairs. Just file the paperwork." Other people in the office were turning now, watching the disruption. An elderly couple filing a marriage license. A title company representative with a stack of folders. A real estate attorney I recognized from union dealings. Witnesses. Audience. Documentation. "Sir, do you have medical documentation establishing incompetency and granting you guardianship?" Jennifer asked. "I don't need documentation. I'm his son." Travis's face went white, the kind of bloodless pale that happens when your body realizes it's in danger before your brain catches up. His mouth opened but nothing came out for 3 full seconds, just empty air and the beginning of sounds that never formed into words. Behind him his attorney took a step back, physically distancing himself from what was about to happen, the way lawyers do when they realize their client lied to them and they're about to be associated with a crime. "Dad, you don't understand," Travis finally managed, his voice gone high and thin. "This is all a misunderstanding. We can talk about this at home." "We're not going home," I said quietly, each word landing with the weight of finality. "You're not going anywhere except jail." Detective Mendez moved closer, her presence shifting the geometry of the space, making Travis the center of a tightening circle. "Mr. Frazier, we have 6 months of surveillance footage showing you illegally accessing your father's safe and photographing confidential documents. We have audio recordings of you discussing plans to fraudulently transfer property and institutionalize your father against his will. And we have video from this morning showing you forging his signature on legal documents." She gestured to the deeds still sitting on counter 7, the paper crisp and white and damning. "You just attempted to file those fraudulent documents with a county recorder. That's felony forgery, attempted theft, and elder financial abuse. Combined sentencing guidelines put you at 10 to 15 years in prison. The recorder's office had gone completely silent. Every person in the building was watching now, frozen in whatever transaction they'd been conducting. The elderly couple filing their marriage license stood with their hands clasped together. The title company rep had stopped mid-signature on her own documents. The real estate attorney I recognized was recording the scene on his phone, probably already thinking about the story he'd tell at the next bar association meeting. Witnesses everywhere. No escape. No ambiguity. Just the pure mathematics of consequences catching up to actions. This is insane, Travis said, but his voice carried no conviction now, just desperate noise. I was trying to help. He's confused, he's forgetting things, he can't manage his properties anymore. Someone had to step in. I forget nothing, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket, opening the folder labeled property records. I know you've been accessing my safe since November 18th at 2:34 in the afternoon. I know you photographed 23 pages of documents including rental agreements, mortgage files, and insurance policies. I know you met with an attorney named Stevens to discuss guardianship procedures. I know you have $43,000 in credit card debt. I know you plan to sell my properties to Consolidated Construction for $2 million, a 40% loss from actual market value. I know everything, Travis, because I've been watching you the entire time. I turned the phone screen toward Detective Mendez, scrolling through the archived footage. Travis in my study. Travis at my safe. Travis photographing documents. Travis on the phone describing me as senile and incompetent. 6 months of evidence, time-stamped and backed up to 3 separate cloud servers, more documentation than any prosecutor would need to build an airtight case. You recorded me. Travis's voice cracked on the last word. That's illegal. You can't use that. Ohio is a one-party consent state, Marcus Webb said, stepping forward from where he'd been standing near the property records terminal. Your father had every legal right to record activities in his own home, especially when investigating suspected criminal activity. Every second of that footage is admissible in court. He set his briefcase on counter 7, opened it with 2 precise clicks, and pulled out a stack of documents bound with a black binder clip. These are the property deeds with Clause 14b that your father insisted on including when he purchased each rental property. The clause you didn't know existed because you never bothered to read the actual legal documents. You just assumed your father was too stupid to protect himself. Travis grabbed the papers, his hand shaking now, scanning the text with growing horror. I watched his eyes move across the words, saw the exact moment he understood what the clause meant, saw his face collapse as he realized every deed he'd tried to file was void before he'd even walked through the door. The trap had been set years ago, long before he'd ever thought to steal from me, built into the foundation of every property I owned. Protection I'd insisted on when Marcus said I was being paranoid. This can't be legal, Travis whispered, but he wasn't talking to anyone anymore, just saying words into the void, prayers that wouldn't be answered. It's perfectly legal, Marcus replied. And it's been part of the public record since 2007. You could have found it if you'd looked. But you didn't look. You just assumed. Detective Mendez pulled handcuffs from her belt, the metal catching the fluorescent light. Mr. Frazier, you're under arrest for forgery, attempted grand theft, and elder financial abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Dad, please. Travis's voice broke completely now, tears starting to run down his face, his careful composure shattered into something raw and desperate. Please don't do this. I'm your son. I made a mistake. We can fix this. I'll give everything back. Just don't press charges. Please. The word hung in the air between us. Please. The same word he'd used when he was 8 years old and broke his mother's favorite lamp. When he was 16 and wrecked his first car. When he was 24 and needed money to cover rent he'd spent on something else. Please, Dad. Always the same word. Always the same expectation that I would absorb his mistakes, cover his debts, pretend his failures were just unfortunate accidents instead of patterns of behavior that never changed because they never had to. You called me incompetent, I said, my voice still quiet but carrying across the silent office. You told people I had dementia. You scheduled a fraudulent medical evaluation. You planned to sell everything I built and lock me in an assisted living facility while you spent my money paying your gambling debts and your girlfriend's car lease. You didn't make a mistake, Travis. You made a choice. A systematic, calculated choice that took 6 months of planning and required you to look at me every day while pretending to be my son. I stepped closer, close enough to see the tears tracking through the stubble on his face, close enough to smell his expensive cologne mixing with the sweat of fear. Family doesn't destroy family. You should have remembered that before you decided I was too fat and too stupid to notice you were robbing me. Detective Mendez moved Travis's arms behind his back, the handcuffs clicking shut with a sound like a lock engaging, permanent and irreversible. Travis made a noise somewhere between a sob and a scream, his body trying to pull away but having nowhere to go. You're destroying my life, he choked out. You destroyed your own life, I replied. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. They walked him toward the exit, his attorney following at a distance, already drafting the mental narrative he'd used to explain why he hadn't known his client was committing crimes. Other people in the office parted to let them through, creating a path like water flowing around an obstacle. Travis kept looking back at me, his face desperate and pleading and furious all at once, expecting even now that I would change my mind, call it off, be the father who always forgave him. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched until he disappeared through the doors and into the parking lot where a patrol car was waiting. Jennifer Martinez at Counter 7 was processing paperwork, officially documenting the rejected filings, creating the permanent record that Travis Frazier had attempted to commit fraud and been stopped. Marcus was talking to Detective Mendez, coordinating the evidence transfer, making sure every recording and document would be available for the prosecutor. The elderly couple went back to their marriage license. The title company rep returned to her stack of folders. The recorder's office resumed its normal rhythm, the machinery of bureaucracy moving forward, indifferent to individual catastrophe. I walked back to my plastic chair and sat down. My knees ached from standing. My back hurt from tension I'd been holding for 6 months. My hands were steady but my chest felt tight, not from fear or sadness but from the simple physical reality of having carried weight for so long and finally being able to set it down. Marcus joined me after 10 minutes, settling into the chair beside mine with a sigh. He'll try to plea bargain. His attorney will argue diminished capacity, family dysfunction, substance abuse, whatever narrative makes him look sympathetic. But with the evidence you've got, the prosecutor won't offer anything less than 5 years. Probably closer to 8. Good, I said. Not because I wanted my son in prison. Because I wanted the system to work the way it was designed to work, to protect people who followed rules from people who thought rules didn't apply to them. Because I wanted Travis to spend enough time locked away to understand that silence doesn't mean weakness and patience doesn't mean permission. What will you do now? Marcus asked. I looked at the marble floors, the fluorescent lights, the counter where Travis had tried to steal everything I'd built and failed because I'd spent 20 years learning how to protect myself from people exactly like him. Go home, I said. Change my locks. Change my safe combination. Get some sleep. Then go back to work Monday night at 11 o'clock and supervise third shift like I've been doing for 18 years. 3 months later I was sitting in my study at 8:30 on a Tuesday night, the same room where Travis had photographed my documents, where he'd opened my safe thinking he was stealing my future. The room looked the same as it always had. Same desk with the cigarette burn on the corner from the previous owner. Same filing cabinet with the drawer that sticks. Same window that rattles when the wind comes from the north. But the safe combination had been changed. The locks on every door had been replaced with Schlage deadbolts I'd installed myself, spending 4 hours on a Saturday with my drill and a level, making sure each one seated perfectly in the frame. The keys lived on a ring in my pocket, and nobody else had copies. Not anymore. The plea agreement sat on my desk, 8 pages of legal language that Marcus Webb had forwarded me that morning with a brief email. It's done. I'd read it twice already but I picked it up again, feeling the weight of the paper, standard copy stock from the prosecutor's office, slightly rough texture, black ink from a laser printer. Travis had accepted 8 years at Mansfield Correctional Institution. Restitution of $15,000 for attorney fees and security system costs. Permanent restraining order effective immediately and extending 5 years post-release. No contact provisions that made it a felony if he tried to call, write, or approach me. The document was signed by Travis, his public defender, the prosecutor, and a judge whose name I didn't recognize. 8 years. He'd be 40 years old when he got out, if he served the full sentence. More likely 6 with good behavior, assuming he learned how to follow rules in a place where not following them had immediate consequences. I set the paper down and looked around my study. My rental property files were organized in the filing cabinet, each property in its own folder, tax records current, maintenance logs updated, tenant agreements filed chronologically. 7 properties worth $2.3 million according to the assessment I'd gotten last month from a real estate appraiser Marcus had recommended. All of them still mine. All of them protected by Clause 14b that Travis had never bothered to read. I'd refinanced 2 of the properties in February, pulled out equity at 3.75% interest, used the cash to upgrade security systems on all 7 buildings. Ring doorbells, smart locks, monitored alarm systems, $18,000 total investment from a security company that gave me a commercial discount. Not because I was paranoid. Because I'd learned that protection was cheaper than recovery, and prevention was more reliable than prosecution. The night shift at Kellerman Manufacturing started in 2 hours. I'd shower soon, put on my work uniform, drive the same 23-minute route I'd been driving for 18 years. Clock in at 10:45. Walk Bay 1 through Bay 7 checking hydraulic pressure, logging temperatures, supervising third-shift workers who still saw my belly and my clipboard and made their assumptions. I didn't correct them anymore. Let them think what they wanted. Underestimation was a weapon when you knew how to use it, and I'd spent 2 decades proving that the quietest man in the room was often the one who understood the system best. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus: Union wants you to lead asset protection seminar next month. Teaching other members how to use contract clauses for financial security. Interested? I typed back, yes. Because that's what the system was for. Protecting people who worked hard and followed rules from predators who thought kindness was weakness, who thought patience was permission, who thought silence meant surrender. 1-word reply. Marcus would understand. He always did. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting the movement, the familiar ache that settled deep in the joint after years of concrete floors and 12-hour shifts. Walked to the kitchen and started the coffee maker, the same Mr. Coffee machine I'd bought in 2009, white plastic gone yellow with age, the carafe with a chip in the spout that made it drip if you poured too fast. It still worked. Still made coffee that tasted the same as it had for 17 years. Reliability mattered more than aesthetics. The kitchen table was empty now. No papers spread across it. No son sitting in my chair planning to steal my life. Just the scratched oak surface with its cigarette burns and water rings, the table his mother and I had bought at an estate sale 23 years ago for $75. She'd refinished it that summer, sanding away years of damage, applying new stain with careful strokes. It had outlasted her by 5 years and would probably outlast me too. Objects endured. People failed. Systems worked when you built them properly. I poured coffee into my thermos, the big Stanley brand one with the dent on the bottom from where I dropped it off a loading dock in 2016. Still held heat for 8 hours. Still had the original lid even though the gasket was wearing thin and would need replacing soon. Screwed the cap tight and set it by the door next to my lunchbox, the black canvas one with the broken zipper and the grease stains that wouldn't wash out no matter how many times I tried. Friday morning I'd stopped at Rosie's Diner for breakfast like I did most Fridays. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, coffee, $9.47 with tip. The waitress who'd been working there for 12 years asked if my son would be joining me. She used to see us together sometimes, back when Travis still pretended he cared about anything other than what he could take. No, I'd said simply. Not anymore. She'd nodded and not asked follow-up questions. People in diners understood that families broke in ways that didn't need explanation. The eggs had been perfect. The toast had been exactly the right shade of brown. The coffee had been hot and bitter and exactly what I'd needed. Everything in its place. Everything functioning as designed. I'd eaten slowly, reading the newspaper someone had left on the counter, local news about city council budget debates and high school basketball scores. Ordinary problems. Normal concerns. The kind of things people worried about when they weren't fighting their own children in court. When I'd finished, I'd left a $5 tip on a $10 meal, because the waitress had known not to ask questions, and that kind of discretion was worth paying for. My Ford F-150 sat in the driveway with 192,000 miles on the odometer. The check engine light had come on last week, something about the oxygen sensor that I'd fix myself this weekend with a $40 part from AutoZone and an hour in my garage. The truck ran fine despite the light. Still started every morning. Still got me to work and back. I'd maintain it myself for another 5 years easily, maybe 10 if I stayed on top of the maintenance schedule. The steering wheel had that worn spot on the left side where my thumb rested, the leather smooth and shaped to my grip after 11 years. Every time I drove I felt that groove, that evidence of repetition and time and the simple act of showing up day after day after day. Marcus had called yesterday with an update. Travis tried to have the restraining order modified. Wanted permission to write you letters. Judge denied it. Said the no contact provision was part of his plea agreement and he doesn't get to renegotiate after the fact. Good, I'd said. Not because I was cruel. Because boundaries only worked if you enforced them, and Travis had spent 32 years learning that my boundaries were negotiable. That education was over. He could spend the next 8 years learning what non-negotiable looked like. His mother calls me sometimes, Marcus had continued. Travis's mother. Your ex-wife. She wants you to know he's sorry. Wants you to consider reconciliation when he gets out. Tell her no. You sure? She says he's getting counseling in prison. Working on himself. Says he understands what he did wrong. He understands he got caught. That's different from understanding why it was wrong. Tell her no contact means no contact. That includes third-party messages. Marcus had sighed but agreed. He understood how systems work too. Once you set a parameter, you maintained it. Otherwise the whole structure collapsed and you were back where you started, vulnerable to the same people who'd tried to destroy you the first time. I checked my watch. 9:15. Time to shower and dress for work. The night shift waited for no one, not even men who'd just spent 3 months watching their sons get prosecuted for trying to steal their lives. The factory floor would be the same as always. The hydraulic gauges would need checking. The temperature logs would need updating. The workers would see me coming with my clipboard and make their assumptions, and I would let them, because what they thought didn't matter compared to what I knew. What I knew was this: never mistake a man's patience for his ignorance. Never assume silence means surrender. Never forget that the overweight night shift supervisor everyone talks over might be the same man who wrote the contract clauses protecting him from people exactly like you. Travis had wanted to inherit my life's work. Instead he'd inherited 8 years to think about why competence always defeats arrogance, why the quietest man in the room is often the most dangerous, and why the fat guy on third shift understood more about protecting what mattered than he'd ever bothered to learn. I picked up my thermos and lunchbox. Turned off the kitchen light. Locked the door behind me with the new Schlage deadbolt that seated perfectly in the frame. The night was cold and clear, stars visible above the streetlights, the air carrying that metallic bite of frozen Lake Erie. My breath fogged in front of me as I walked to my truck. 18 years of night shifts. 18 years of the same route, the same factory, the same circuit through Bay 1 to Bay